In my last video, I defended that all Africans should buy Bitcoin. Regardless of the country where you're in, you need to have some Bitcoins to protect yourself. But another thing that as African we need to know, we need to be aware of is how do we approach our education. As you probably know, many people, both from other countries, other continents, like the United States, China, Russia, they all want to tell the African man how he should behave, how he should be. Many times we hear that our culture is inferior, that our traditions are outdated, that we need to obey or be in a certain standard that they create. And you also know the amount of institutions that Europeans, Americans create, and usually as Africans we're told to simply respect, not question, not show any resilience, any resistance. We need to simply accept it. And this is a problem with education. When a man, in this case an African man, and by African man I mean men and women, when we're not well educated, it's easier to manipulate us. It's easier to take our resources. What's happening here in Africa? You know the amount of companies that are using us as labor. They barely pay us and they extract all our resources and they make the billions and billions and billions, and we continue to have the same level of poverty, even getting worse. In that video, in my last video, I showed a graph where you could see the amount of people that are living below the poverty line. How can we explain that a continent that is so full of resources, literally Africa is the place that has the most resources in all Earth. Literally Africa has the most resources of all continents. There's no place on Earth where you can get the most diverse amount of resources than Africa. No place. But at the same time, Africa is the poorest continent. How come? You know why this is the case? Is because although we call ourselves independent men and women, we call ourselves independent countries, the truth is that we're still living like colonies. And this colonization process starts in the mind. The mind of the African man is being colonized. We consume foreign culture, we depend on foreign goods. We basically have very little of our own to consume, to educate ourselves. The books we learn from are all made by Europeans, by Americans, as if we didn't know how to tell our own history, our own stories. So here in this video, I titled it How to Become More Intelligent. But this is not a video for everyone. This is a video for African men and women so that we can, this is a video for African men and women so that we can recover our own sense of independence, so we can educate ourselves properly, to know what is our place in this world, to not let anyone manipulate us. And sometimes the manipulation even comes from fellow Africans. Some of our politicians are manipulating us for their own good, and we need to make sure we don't get manipulated. So we first need to understand why education is such a key aspect of our growth as African men and women. The first, here I brought a quote. I don't know who that quote is from, but it's an African quote that says that learning is wealth that no thief can touch. So while we know about how much of our resources are being taken, if we fully understand the problem of this exploration, if we fully understand the problem of this exploitation, if we understand where we come from, what we are, and who we want to be as men and women, as a country, as a continent, no one, regardless of the guns they have, regardless of the resources they have, they simply cannot stop us. They simply can't do the same thing for us. It's our continent, it's our countries. How come they get to say what's done here? How come they can manipulate us? And I also brought a quote from Nelson Mandela that he used to say that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. As we all know, when Nelson Mandela fought apartheid, he didn't use violence. Although in certain cases it's necessary, maybe, I don't know, I'm not discussing it. But the thing is, if you're not well educated, using the apartheid example, how can you fully understand that you are a valuable human being as much as the white man is, as much as the European, the American is? How can you know that? How? If you are not well educated. Because what they used to tell the people during apartheid is they were superior to us. If you don't have a good education, if you don't have a good sense of humanity, you might believe that yes, you deserve less, or you are less, or you are inherently less capable, and that when they come here with their money, with their help, that we should be thankful for their help. We should be thankful because they're giving us some of their crumbs while they take the bread. The problem is they're giving us crumbs, but the bread is being made out of our own dough. Okay, so now that we got this out of the way, that we understand that it's important to educate ourselves, we need to understand what exactly it means to being intelligent. Because people tell all the time, someone is intelligent, someone is smart, someone is this, someone is that. But what exactly do I mean? To me, when I'm talking about becoming more intelligent, becoming educated, I don't mean having the ability to solve difficult equations. No, I don't mean being able to remember everything. You will not solve problems, you will not improve your life, improve your country's life too, just because you're able to remember a lot of stuff. And IQ test is just a test. It doesn't really show you how smart, how intelligent you truly are. Intelligence actually comes down to the ability to learning quickly, to being able to adapt to new situations. And as African, this is something that you knew. And as African, this is something that you know, that many times you need to adapt to new situations. Sometimes a business that used to work no longer works, and knowledge that you could monetize no longer is monetized. The prices of things go up. It's harder to get access to land, this and that, and all that tests your intelligence, your ability to adapt to those new situations, to those new possibilities. Another thing is being able to understand complex ideas. And here are the aspect of understanding complex ideas is where I tell the African man, don't waste your time dancing, listening to music. Don't waste your time, okay? You need to know the time that you're spending thinking about drugs, about sex, is the time that the Europeans, the Americans, are using to know more about the world, know more about how to use resources to transform it into economical growth. As Africans, we need to do the same thing. We need to figure out how to develop industries to keep the wealth that Africa produces in Africa. To do that, we need to be able to understand complex ideas, to understand things like supply chains, to understand the government's role in the economical growth, to understand where the entrepreneurs go. Should we subsidize entrepreneurs? Should we give them loans? How do we make our own startups? How do we use social media to grow media? How can we use social media to get access to more opportunities? How can we build real growth, real economical development for Africa? We need to be able to understand complex ideas. And understanding complex ideas will lead us to making good decisions and being good at solving problems effectively. This is what being intelligent is. It's not knowing a few equations or being able to recite poems or recite dates. No, it's not that. Okay, so now how do we do that truly? Here I separated 4 steps which I think are the base foundation to becoming educated. And the step 1 is learning about your country's history. And I already know that some people will not agree. Some people will not Some people don't understand what I mean when I say learn about your country's history. When I say learn about your country's history, the first thing I hear from people is, yes, I know the Independence Day of my country. I know some of the wars we fought. No. I'm talking about a much deeper and practical knowledge of your country's history. Every country, all countries are what they are today, partially because of what happened in their past. Okay? So, for example, right now we all know what's happening in South Africa. And have you questioned yourself, why isn't that happening in other African countries? Does South Africa have the most amount of migrants? Yes or no? Is it true that if they go back to their countries, the jobs for South Africans will increase? Is that true? How can you know that if you don't know about that country's history? If you have no idea what the 80s were, what the 90s were in that country? For example, all African countries have some economical elite. Those people that are part of the economical elite the people that are part of the economical elite in your country, did they become economical elite because they work for it, because they studied a lot, they opened business, or did they use the state, did they use the government to enrich themselves? This is history. You need to understand this. If you don't understand your country's history, you will not know why the country is how it is, because not everything is about current decisions. Some of the plies, some of the fights we have to fight, it's because of bad decisions or good decisions that were made in the past. And some of those people that made those decisions are still alive. Therefore, learning about your country's history, it's mandatory to anyone that wants to become educated. So today, you can even, if you want, you can close this video and do it right now. Go to Google and write history of, put the name of your country, PDF. Download a PDF, at least 100 pages, read it carefully, ask questions, understand why your country is the way it is. All African countries are facing similar economical problems: poverty, access to land, rise of goods prices, but the reasons for those problems are not the same. What made my country get worse might not be the same thing that made your country get worse. How will you know if you don't know your country's history? That's my question. So you need to learn about your country's history. Now, the next thing you need to do to become educated is learning some basic math. And I know you may be like, what, didn't you say that being intelligent has nothing to do with knowing or being able to solve equations? Yes, but it's proven that math helps in our logical thinking. So some knowledge of math is necessary. And here I'm talking about basic things like being able to do operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, work with decimals, percentages, and solve some basic problems. Let me give you one example of why knowing some math is helpful. I remember in 2023, yes, in 2023, there was a Ponzi scheme, a pyramid scheme called Campar. Maybe you heard about it, I don't know. If you heard about Campar, tell me down below. It was going around in many African countries. I saw Campar in Mozambique, in Angola. If I'm not mistaken, I think South Africa or Nigeria also had Campar. And what they did is that they were promising high returns. For example, I remember once they promised about 3% each month. And if you know some math, you know that it's impossible to guarantee a 3% monthly return over time. I'm going to put there on the screen for you to see how much money just 10 rands or 100 rands would be at a 3% rate a month. How much that would be in like 5, 10, 15, and 20 years. And it's very clear, now you're seeing there, right? It's very clear that it's impossible to realistically make this. But if you don't understand basic math, basic percentages, you will not know this. So what I'm saying about learning math, it's not to become a mathematician or an engineer. No, it's simply to be able to analyze simple things about reality, including investments. The next step in this guide to become more intelligent is read more difficult things. Today we are living through horrible, bad times, honestly. There are a lot of people that don't read. Maybe you there listening to me, what was the last book you've read? Some people think that reading books is some way overrated, but the truth is, reading books, and specifically more difficult books gradually, will help you have a clear thinking. Critical thinking will help you understand reality better, understand where you live in, the things that are happening. It will help you to have a sharper mind, to be more educated. And the advantage is, when you are more educated, you make better decisions, you will probably make more money, and you will be able to help other people. What's better than that? What's better than being intelligent, which means you will probably get applauded by that, but that's just vanity. You will be able to understand your country or your reality better. You will be able to be paid more because you know more, because you're more capable of solving problems. And here I showed a couple things what I mean about reading more difficult things. First is, you need to read things outside of your field of expertise. One of the mistakes that people make is this idea that if I am an engineer, I just read engineering books, I just solve engineering problems. This will limit you. This makes you very predictable and so not unique. And being unique is one of the ways that you can stand out, for example, in the job market, in life, in social relationships, so on and so forth. And here I highlighted some of the knowledge, some of the things that you can start reading to improve, to have a well-rounded view on reality, to have a better understanding of life itself. For example, you can learn psychology. Learning psychology will help you improve your marketing if you work with marketing, if you work with sales. And one thing that I'm going to tell you is that even if you think that I don't work with sales, I am a doctor, I am a nurse, I am whatever. The truth is, with the rise of AI, with the rise of social media, regardless of what's your field of expertise, you will need to learn how to sell in order to increase the number of clients at your place of work. If you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, if you import and export stuff, whatever it is, you will need clients. If your patient is your client in a way, so you need to better market yourself, build a personal brand, and part of that is understanding human psychology. Another thing is philosophy. Philosophy can highly improve our decision making. And in a similar way, mathematics can also help your decision making and also improve your logical thinking. Understanding economics will allow you to understand this economical and social situations of your country, as well as understand your country's politics. This to me is very interesting and important because it allows you to get out of this zone in which we simply blame politicians without proper context of why the decisions were made and how much is the politician's mistake and how much is the macroeconomical situation of the world itself, because and how much is due to the macroeconomic, how much is due to the macroeconomical situation of the country. And this is very important. However, one of the most underestimated ways in which you can become educated, in which you can become more intelligent, it's something that is the most attainable part of all those steps, which is surround yourself with smart friends. I know it sounds silly, but the truth is, the kind of people that walk with you, that talk with you, I know it sounds silly, but the people you surround yourself with will highly influence the kind of results you're able to get. They will influence where you can get, how much you can earn in your job, how much you know about the world. Because and this happens because, and I can prove to you how valuable having good and smart friends can be to your life. Imagine that. Remember here in step 3, I said learn psychology, philosophy, economics, mathematics, and as you probably noticed, this is a lot of work. This will take you a long time. I'm not going to lie to you or make it sound like you will be able to get through all of that in 3 months. It's not possible. It takes time. It can take 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 years. I don't know. It depends. It goes from person to person, but it takes time. Now, if you have a friend that is an expert in psychology, you can speed up the time that you're going to need to learn psychology. If you have a friend that knows all about your country's economics and politics, you will have a better grasp, a better understanding of your country's economics. The same thing with mathematics, with everything, with your country's history, whatever it is. So I would advise to you that the first step you need to take out of all this is the final step. Surround yourself with smart friends. Take a piece of paper and take down the fields, the information, the knowledge that you think it's important for you to have. Then try to find people near you that can help you with that. Not in some over technical way, over technical vocabulary. No, it can be as simple as tell me in 5 minutes why our country's poverty index are getting worse, to someone that understands economics, for example. It can be as simple as that. So yeah, that's it, guys. Please subscribe to the African Boy channel. Here we are to improve ourselves as Africans, understand our position in this world, see what we can do to first improve ourselves, educate ourselves, improve and help our families, and ultimately change the current economical and social situation of our continent. And as I always say, it doesn't start and it doesn't finish with the government. It starts with every one of us. You need to figure out how to change your own reality first, and then it can translate into other parts, which would be family, community, city, district, country, and so on and so forth. I hope I can bring some help in that realm, and I will continue to make videos with the things that I've learned and the things that I am learning, because I am following each one of these steps. I'm not an expert. I'm also learning about my country's history. I'm learning math. I'm reading more difficult stuff that I struggle to get through, but that's the path to improving, to becoming a better decision maker, to earning more over time, and changing Africa. Africa is an important continent, the continent with the most resources. Everyone knows that. There's no place that has more resources than Africa, so there's no reason for Africa being the poorest continent in the world. Thank you. Please subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, leave a suggestion of a video idea that you would like to see me bring here to the channel, and I see you next week. Remember, every week 3 videos, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays.